Before we get started, I promise this is not Commander slop content, okay? It's just 6 backgrounds that I thought were super cool. I didn't want to make 6 videos about 6 different decks. I just wanted to talk about some backgrounds I found cool. Is that good? Sounds good. Now, before we get into the 6 backgrounds that I think are the most interesting, check out these sleeves. Look at the color. Look at the color. I forget what the actual color's called. They're Dragon Shield. I'm not sponsored by it. I just thought the color was sick. It's what I've been putting my mono black deck in recently. And I just feel like it fits. I feel like the color is really, really nice. So just wanted to highlight that. Thought it was pretty cool. Let's get on with the video. Feywild Visitor is a background for 2 and a blue that says commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more non-token creatures you control deal damage to a player, you create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. I think this is an incredibly cool kind of background that is going to generate more and more and more tokens over time. This is the kind of background that just generates inevitability and can really, really deal some damage, right? If it's just not dealt with immediately. People will think, oh, you know, you'll just get a couple of hits here and there or whatever, and then you start maybe getting some extra combats if you have a red commander that comes with it. Like Karlach is a really good partner with something like this. Or it's like, hey, now I have a bunch of tokens that I can sacrifice if you pair it with a black background commander or any of these things, right? Where you just, whenever you pair it, you can go in many different directions. You can make them really big. You can make them tap for mana. You can do any of these things. You're making tokens just by dealing combat damage. So you're already kind of having a bit of a win condition, which is I need to deal damage to people to make these tokens. And then you have a pretty decent payoff, which is making the actual tokens itself. I think it can be very creative with whichever commander you decide to pair it with. I think Karlach is probably the most popular for a background like this, mostly because she does provide you with extra combats, which means that you can put just some haste enablers in there, immediately get these tokens to start swinging for even more damage, be able to draw some cards with a coastal piracy kind of effect. You can do a lot of stuff with Karlach and this enchantment, but you could probably have a couple more things in there. I think a Dimir build would be super cool. I can't think of any of the black commanders off the top of my head, but I thought Feywild Visitor is a really cool inclusion. Obviously it's down here at 6. You know, I don't think it's super interesting, but out of all the other ones that do exist, I think this one is one of the more interesting ones. Popular Entertainer is an enchantment background that is 1 and a red, which says commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, go to target creature that player controls. If you like red and you like the fact that red is able to control in its own unique way, typically in the form of goading, this is the commander for you. Pair it with maybe a white commander, pair it with maybe a black commander. Typically I see like black-red commanders are more like a Punisher type build. It's usually group slug, forced combat style of decks. If it's usually paired with white, it could be like a forced combat control deck. You know, there's many different things you can go and do with this. I don't think green is going to be a great choice here. Blue could be a great choice here with the whole control aspect, but I think a white commander or a black commander is going to be your best bet. Again, I'm only talking about the background, so if you can find some cool synergies, if you can find anything like that you might find interesting that goes perfectly with this in either red or green, be my guest. I'm just spitballing, okay? I just have the backgrounds in front of me. I don't have the commanders that go with the backgrounds in front of me. I just think this is cool. So try out Popular Entertainer, because Popular Entertainer really is me, if you think about it. I'm not entertaining or popular, so I take that all back. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? Far Traveler is an enchantment background for 2 and a white that says commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target tapped creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. The typical blink strategy in Commander. Typically you have some sort of alternate win con, or maybe you just make an extremely large board of tokens over and over again. The thing that I like about Far Traveler is the fact that you can enable it pretty easily. You don't have to go to combat. There's a lot of different things you can do to tap a creature or make sure your creature that you have is tapped so that you can meet the condition to blink it. Another thing that's really great about this is that you can put it in non-blink colors, right? Blue-white or mono-white is probably the most, typical for blink decks, but you can add red to this now. You can add black to this now instead, right? You can add green to it. Green kind of sometimes is blink, but like not really. I would say red is more blink because you can make copies of things, but I think that a red-white blink deck or a red-black blink deck could be pretty dang cool. Did I say red-black? I meant white-black blink. This is basically Conjurer's Closet in the command zone if played around properly. You can also include Conjurer's Closet as well as Portal something. The White Portal? I forget what it's called. You can do the White Portal as well. And so if you're in the red shell, you can be a lot more aggressive with it. You can have creatures that enter and they burn people. If you're in the black shell, you can have things that enter and they get value from entering, or maybe they get value from leaving the battlefield, right? Leave the battlefield effects and enter the battlefield effects are extremely powerful. And of course, you could always just go with the classic blue, where you're drawing 10 million cards every single turn, you're blinking all your stuff, and you're never winning the game, but hey, you're playing a mean game of solitaire. That's up to you. I think red or black would probably be the best commander pairing you could make for something like this. Master Chef is a legendary background enchantment for 2 and a green, which says commander creatures you own have this creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them. This is the typical persist combo enabler, background enchantment. You should probably pair this with a black commander, right? There's no reason to not do anything with that. You might say that's really boring, and you might be right. That might be really, really boring. But there's more that you can do than just persist combos. A lot of +1/+1 counter synergies are present in white creatures. They're present on red creatures, and you can find ways to make sure that you get a lot of value out of this. Obviously, green has the most prevalent +1/+1 counters, so it probably would be mostly a mono green deck with maybe a little bit of white sprinkled in or a little bit of red sprinkled in. I'd mostly recommend black as the main pairing for a deck like this, though, because persist combos are actually pretty cool, and it's a great way for aristocrats to actually be a decent and viable strategy, because otherwise they're not that good. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? Scion of Halaster is a legendary background for 1 and a black, which says commander creatures you own have the first time you would draw a card each turn. Instead, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your graveyard and the other back on top of your library, then draw a card. There's a lot of things you could do with this. A lot of people might want to pair this with, a color like green or maybe even a color like red. I say you pair this up with a blue commander and you find a way to utilize the graveyard to the best of your ability. I think that one guy that allows you to cast an instant and sorcery when you cast the other type, that guy with this is probably so gas, because you could just have cantrip tribal and get so much benefit out of self-mill, out of drawing. You get to the point where you will have a lot of cards in your graveyard for those big delve spells, or some of those big creatures that get reduced based off of cards in graveyards, or you can have some sort of really, really big spell payoff. You can do a lot of different things. You could even go a full self-mill route, because if you manage your resources properly, you can basically turn every single 1-mana cantrip into a mill 2 cantrip, into like so much stuff. You can dig through so much. You get supreme card selection for something like this, and a lot of ways it is just more card draw, because if you're utilizing flashback, if you're utilizing a commander that allows you to play spells from the graveyard or enables some sort of strategy where the graveyard is usable, then you're in a really, really good spot, because you'll be able to essentially draw an extra card even if it's in your graveyard. It's technically drawing a card if you're still able to play it. It's just in a more public zone. That's all it really is. I think this is an insanely good background, which is why it is at the number 2 slot for today's video. Clancrafter is a legendary background enchantment for 1 and a blue, which says commander creatures you own have 2, sacrifice an artifact. Put a 1/1 counter on this creature and draw a card. I have been on quite the artifact token, artifact generator, utilize artifact binge recently. I've been playing Urza in CEDH. I've been playing a lot of treasure creators or artifact token users in casual. Been brewing a lot of decks that have to do with artifacts, and there is a deck list I actually have completed right now with Vol, Candlekeep Researcher, I believe is the name of that card, and Clancrafter. It provides consistency. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that card draw in the command zone is actually pretty decent? I still think mana is really good, which is why I paired her up with Vol, but Clancrafter is an insanely good value engine that, makes your commander bigger, if you care about that. It also provides with some easy card draw. If you have artifact synergies, you can consistently recur these artifacts, sack them for value, recur them back. And it also utilizes my favorite card of all time, Ichor Wellspring. There's actually going to be a video on that in a couple of days about Ichor Wellspring, because this card is cracked. It's really not that good, but I really like it. And it works perfectly in a Clancrafter deck. Currently, I play it in just a mono blue shell, but you can also pair it up with a commander like Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, which means you can make a ton of just artifact tokens like clues or foods or treasures. You're able to tap them for the green mana that they make, and then your commander is the sack outlet. So your commander provides you a ton of mana from all these dinky artifact tokens that you're generating. You can then immediately tap them to sacrifice them, and with cards like Training Grounds or Biomancer's Familiar, every single artifact token you make becomes a card draw. So not only is it making you mana, it also pays for itself and is able to sack itself, because you're immediately able to tap that, and then it's your commander that has the ability, not the actual artifact, and there's no tapping required for you to do this. As much as partners and backgrounds and whatever kind of breaks the spirit of the format in many ways, I think that they still can provide a ton of variety when it comes to what they actually build. Rograk and Tymna and Thrasios are obviously like the best commanders, and backgrounds aren't nearly as powerful, I guess, as partner commanders, but they still are very strong, and they still are able to make this kind of smorgasbord of ideas like, hey, this is probably the best partner background and partner commander or background commander that can go really well together, but it also can go pretty well with this one. And it also can go pretty well with this one. And it's all just about, fitting the pieces together and seeing what they're like. So if I inspired you at all to make any of these decks, let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this content, and I'll see you guys all next time.